Hey YouTube, Untamed here. So today I'm very excited to talk about the newly teased images from Toyota of the new Land Cruiser that's coming to the United States. For those of you who don't know, we did end Toyota ended the Toyota Land Cruiser nameplate for the United States back in 2021. They sent it off with a limited production run of the Heritage Edition, 1,200 units per year in 2020 and 2021. And I love that. I love the 200 series. It is a fantastic vehicle. I've owned a few of them. You know that. That 5.7 liter V8, the last V8, I think we can comfortably say that we'll ever see in a Land Cruiser or even Toyota for that matter. We'll see. But fantastic vehicle, right? Built in Japan, body on frame design, super rugged, super simple, perfect. Perfect for so many people. So I recently just sold mine. So I'm going to talk through a number of things in this video. I'm going to talk through the projected design of what we can see and what we can derive from these photos that Toyota released. We're going to talk through the design, the expected powertrain, the projected success of it, what I truly think will be the success, how they will fare in the market when they're released and actually hit the lots, especially considering that they just released that GX 550 that is going to be dang near identical, right? So a lot of similarities there, a lot of overlap, and it makes you wonder how each of them are going to fare amongst each other, being both offered at the same time. But talk through what I think the resale will be and how hard they will be to get at the beginning. And I'll also wrap up this video with talking about what this new Land Cruiser, what the Land Cruiser Prado, based on the Prado, is what we're going to expect to see here, not the 300 series, what this means for the 4Runner and what it means for the Sequoia and the GX and even the 200 series. What does that mean for their values? What does that mean? Where will they fit in the equation? And we'll talk through that. And I'll wrap up with, do I recommend buying one if you get an opportunity to? So up first, let's talk through the design. So I'll throw up the photo here and kind of dissect it a little bit. So when I first saw the side profile, it looked dang near identical to my 80 series that I have. I have an 80 series 1997 Land Cruiser Collector's Edition, and gosh, it looks so similar. Obviously, when you kind of see the windows, you can tell there's different design cues throughout it, very similar to what we find in the GX 550, how the back window kind of goes upward a little bit within the design, same exact thing we see with the Lexus. But the overall side profile, that silhouette, looks very Land Cruiser-esque and very much so to the Land Cruiser 80 series, I would argue. So I'll kind of throw up a picture of my 80 series here too for you to kind of do a comparison, see what you think. I'm excited because I think, because this is going to be based on the Prado, it's not going to be the 300 series, I think we can expect to see more simplicity, because you guys know the 200 series didn't fare as well in the United States collectively when it comes to sales because of the price point. I mean, Toyota only offered the top trims, the top offerings, right? The top dogs with the 5.7 liter V8, only that option, only fully loaded with the Heritage Edition and the quote unquote standard, but it was still stacked full of goodies and tech, right? So that made the price point extremely high and kind of out of reach for a lot of people, unfortunately. And I think that was a huge miss for Toyota because elsewhere in the world, there were so many different options, so many different powertrains, so many different just interior trim options that you could choose, bringing the price point down drastically. And that's really, with it being an off-road vehicle, people want to buy a very simplistic Toyota that they can take off-road and know that they can get out there, run it through its paces, run it through the whole course, and make it back home, right? So, I mean, that is the core of why people buy a Land Cruiser. So it did make it tough, and it put it at a lot of people's price range for the 200 in the United States. So I'm excited that this is the Prado because although we're not getting the quote-unquote big dog motor or whatever, the best of the best in the 300 series, although it's not that, I do appreciate the fact that there is likely going to be a little bit more affordable options, right? So I think that we're going to see a lot of very simplistic Toyota cues within it, a lot of Toyota classic heritage script in and outside of it. You know, I see a few images being posted around online, you know, maybe even round circular headlights perhaps as an option up front. But again, just very simplistic exterior cues is what we're seeing. Even in the photos that were leaked here, they appear to be very basic, and I like that and I appreciate that. So especially when you have the GX 550 being with the overtrail being an option, that makes you wonder, like, if if this is going to be a success, they really do need to bring that price point down to be a notable difference between that and the GX. So I'm hoping that is the case. We can expect it to shift into the expected powertrain. I think we can expect it to share the same powertrain as the GX 550, which is a twin turbo 3.4 liter V6. I mentioned it before in my previous video. I do think that is a win, a very good decision for Toyota to go that direction and not go the hybridized route and get the iForce Max, kind of like what we find in the Tundra TRD Pro, the Sequoia TRD Pro. I'm happy that they didn't hybridize it. I'm happy they didn't put the battery pack in there. I think that is it's a solid move when it comes to long-term reliability, and I think even Toyota knows that too, right? So I mean, obviously the performance levels go way up, not way up, but they go up with the hybrid, the battery strapped to it. But we wonder what that longevity is going to look like truly. What is that going to look like in 150,000 miles, right? I mean, are we going to have to replace that battery, and how much will that be? Blah 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 blah. So I think they're very purposeful in just keeping it to that twin turbo V6. 3.4 liters. So that's what we can expect to see. When it comes to projected success, I think it's going to be a huge splash. Toyota Land Cruisers now, they cost a ton of money, right? I just sold my 200 Series Heritage Edition for $106,000. MSRP was $91,000 back in 2021. So not only did I put 5,000 miles on it, put a bunch of miles on it, and I sold it for what was that, public math, $15,000 more than MSRP, which is pretty remarkable. Very, very few vehicles can do that. But I think the value went up. I think we can confidently say the value went up because of the forbidden fruit mantra, right? Because it was no longer an option, no longer available to folks in the United States. It became that forbidden fruit, kind of like what we see with the Toyota Supra, the original Acura NSX, like that. The forbidden fruit, right? We want what we can't have, and the values just skyrocketed because of it. The fact that the Heritage Edition was a limited production run as well obviously plays a factor in that too. So I do think that people are going to be very excited to see the Land Cruiser nameplate back in the United States, back being offered. So I think people are going to really jump on it, and I think it's going to be a huge splash. Are we going to see a lot of dealer markups, greedy dealership markups? Of course. Salesmen are probably already licking their chops, thinking about this coming with the teaser shots. So hopefully you can still find that the good, honest dealerships that still exist. They're kind of hard to come by these days, unfortunately, but they exist, and you can get them for MSRP. And I'm hoping that will be the case as they begin to hit the lots, right? So I think it's going to be a huge success, especially if there is a good price deviation between that and the GX 550. If there's a notable difference there, if we're talking $10,000, $15,000 gap, that's going to be perfect, I think, for a lot of people. When it comes to resale, I think, especially if there are any limited production or numbered production, I think that's almost a double-edged sword. I love numbered vehicles just like the next guy, but I hate the fact that dealers put like a 30 grand markup on them right when they offer them up with a numbered plate. Oh, there's only 500 of them, so we're going to put 40 grand on top of it, which is disgusting. So I don't know. It's good and bad. It's fun, but if you can get them for MSRP, and if Toyota can hold their dealerships accountable to sell at MSRP, I think that would be amazing, right? But that's me being wishful, unfortunately. So what do I think it means for the 4Runner, Sequoia, the GX, as well as like the previous 200 series? What do I think that means, and where did each of those kind of fit in the equation? Because now we're getting to the point with there are so many options, right? There are so many SUV options being offered right now. We got the Lexus GX 550 with the Overtrail, with off-road oriented versions of it, trim levels being offered. And Lexus historically has always been the more premium, the more plush, more luxurious segment, right? Not so much catered toward the off-road enthusiast and off-road segment, right? So it's interesting to see that they now have an off-road oriented version right from the factory being offered side by side with the Land Cruiser, which has historically been the off-road version, right? So that will be interesting to see how they fare together. And I think really that price point difference is going to be the big driving factor between how each of them fare. But then when it comes to the 4Runner, where does that fit, right? So we know the 5th generation 4Runner is leaving us. Likely the end of the 2024 model year will be the last of the 5th generation naturally aspirated V6. and we're going to likely see that transition to a turbocharged 4-cylinder variant, much like the power plant that we find in the new 2024 Toyota Tacoma TRD Pro. The 4-cylinder iForce Max is what we're likely going to see in that new 4Runner TRD Pro anyway. So we're downsizing our displacement, right? But power numbers are up technically. So with the turbos and the hybrid, the battery packs, everything's becoming more performing, but we are definitely losing that displacement. And to me, I know this may not be the most popular opinion, but I do think we're kind of losing that sense of the raw feeling, the driving experience, unfortunately, that we've grown to love with Toyota by losing that displacement and putting turbos on it, right? So, but when we still have, even if we do downsize the engine to the 4Runner, we now have a 4Runner TRD Pro, very off-roaded, or 4Runner in general, very off-road oriented SUV segment, likely continuing the body-on-frame design, which we've seen across the board. And then we have the Sequoia, which is just barely bigger. I'll say barely bigger. I've owned a Sequoia TRD Pro 2023, and the cargo space was pretty bleak. But you do have a third row, right? So I'll still say barely bigger. We have that option. And then, obviously we have, the LX 600. That's an option too. So we have so many options. And we even got the Toyota Scout on the horizon, perhaps, right? So there's so many off-road oriented vehicles, which is amazing. It's fun. It's great having all these options, but I kind of wonder how it's going to affect the sale figures of each of them. Perhaps Toyota's just being smart and they want to throw a bunch of spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks, and that perhaps might be what they're doing here. So I do kind of question how the 4Runner will continue, in particular, the 4Runner will continue to fare and what the true need of it will be. Because the Prado, the Land Cruiser that I think we can expect to see, although it's going to be more expensive than the 4Runner, we can comfortably say, is very similar size and a very similar segment overall. So, and they're kind of neck and neck. Is there a need for both, right? So interested to see what happens. When it comes to resale value, and I know a lot of my viewers appreciate hearing my thoughts on just resale value in general, because that's obviously what I focus on often. But I'm curious to know what it will do to the 200 series, the Land Cruiser, like the Heritage Edition I just sold, the 2021 and older 200 series. What will the values of those look like in the next 2, 3, 5 years? And that's tough. It's tough because the new Land Cruiser is obviously not the 300 series, and not the same build up from the 200, right? But it still is bringing back the nameplate. So the whole forbidden fruit thing kind of goes out the window a little bit. But what does the 200 have that this new one will never have? That is that V8. So I think that will continuously be sought after. I think there will be a very niche group of people who, it's already kind of niche as it is, but it'll be even more niche now that they brought back the nameplate, of people who will want to pursue that 200 series moving forward with that naturally aspirated V8 and that buttery smooth 8-speed automatic transmission. So there's always going to be people who appreciate the raw, extra simplicity, few bells and whistles of that Heritage Edition. So I think it's going to continue to fare well. I do think it will go down a little bit. I think we're going to see a lot of $80,000 to $90,000 price range of used 200 series Heritage Editions in the next couple of years. So it's going to kind of teeter into that range. Whereas now it's 90,000 to 110,000, or even a little bit more if you have super low miles, right? So that's where I kind of think. Let me know what your thoughts are on that, and let me know what you think, that how the Sequoia, the 4Runner, the GX, how they're all going to kind of fare well together. I mean, if they are going to fare well together, I'd be curious to know what your thoughts are on that. And last final point here is, do I recommend buying it? You already know what's coming. Absolutely. So for sure, get it. Historically speaking, the first model year of a new generation tends to have the most bugs, kinks, and quirks with it, right? So we expect them to have a couple issues with it that first model year. We see that with everything, and Toyota is also subject to that. We see it with every manufacturer. However, by this point, by the time the Land Cruiser is hitting the lots, we've gotten pretty good at that twin turbo V6, right? So we've gotten pretty good at it. We should have gotten good by it by now. And I don't think we're going to see the same level of issues, or at least the magnitude of issues that we would normally see of a new generation, a whole new full redesigned vehicle. So I think the issues are going to be pretty minimal. I think it's going to be more so maybe some kinks with the tech on the interior, and I think those are going to be where we see the most issues, if any, really. So I absolutely recommend buying it. Resale is going to continue to be good, at least for the first 2 or 3 years, for sure. It is going to be one of those vehicles that you can buy it, drive it for a year or two, and sell it for what you paid. I can confidently say that, just given the fact that they're going to be new, and there's probably fairly limited production out of the gate, right? They're not going to just throw a crap ton at the United States and say, here you go, good luck. They're going to kind of build into it, ease into it, I think. So absolutely, if you get an opportunity to buy one at MSRP, for sure do it. For sure do it, check it out. Even if you're on the fence, check it out, enjoy it for a little bit. And if you don't love it, well, get your money back pretty quick if you sell it, I think. So those are my thoughts. I'm excited to see another Japanese built, still built out of the plant in Japan. Sweet SUV, and I'm excited to see that Land Cruiser nameplate come back to the United States, especially me being a uber Land Cruiser nerd. I definitely am excited and appreciate Toyota doing that. So hats off to Toyota bringing it back, and I'm very excited to see it in the flesh come that time. So let me know what your thoughts are. As always, appreciate you watching. Till next time.